Hi, class. This first chapter of the book that we were to read for Dr. Sophia's class, the first chapter is called Addiction and Human Freedom. And it's talking about desire. It was an intriguing chapter. Gerald G. May explains addiction and freedom in terms that are not commonly expressed by most of us. He comes from a medical background, and he lets us know at the very beginning that he's not a theologian. So he is not even coming from that point of view. So he's trying to let us know or explain desire for God from his personal journey, basically. He's convinced that our desire for God is inborn, and we are not necessarily conscious of that desire inside of us. Psalms 119 talks about how much we desire the Lord and his statutes, and how we hide his word in my heart. And I thought of that psalm because of what he was saying. I went back through and I looked at the verses in the Psalms, and I was looking at one of the verses. It said, let me pull it back up here. I meant to hold my place, but it says, when I learn your righteousness and judgments, I will keep your statutes. Oh, do not forsake me utterly. Let me not wander from your commandments. Your word I have hidden in my heart. So basically, as I said, he's trying to explain how we have that same desire for God. Where does it come from? And how does it get established? We feel this desire intensely, I think, when we are children. But along the way in our adulthood, we sometimes lose that desire. The word that the author used is repress, or some repression goes on. In my spiritual formation, I can see how desires can be pushed aside in order to protect a person from experiencing any kind of hurt or disappointment. You know, when we count on people and know and believe that they are going to be there for us no matter what, like even the superhero identity that we place on our parents, especially fathers, when we say there's nothing that my father can't do. And when the day comes that something happens and he's not able to perform it or do it like we thought, we get disappointed. And after that, we kind of hold back on ever allowing ourselves to feel that way ever again. Repressed desires can be resurrected, and this is what he's saying. Those same desires that we had can be manifest later on or whenever they're necessary, but only when that individual is ready to run toward the truth and not hide from it. It never goes away. And I can think of some things personally that I've had to wrestle with that always seems to be lingering in the back of my head, because I haven't really taken the time to face them, which is part of what is going to happen in this class. Spiritual formation is, I see it as a bridge for recovery and deliverance. The author identified, or rather defined, addiction in a traditional way, which was to have habits or practices that tend to bond or enslave the desires of that individual. However, he took it a step further because desires of the addict also enslaves a person, and their freedom is lost. So he kind of went further than that, than just what we would look at. And then again, we attach addictions a lot of time to alcohol, drugs, and things like that. We forget about that we can be addicted to eating. We can be addicted to certain type of clothing. We can be addicted to certain cars. So he runs the gambit of telling us that it can be more than that. But in some of those addictions, when we allow it to get too great or too obsessive, we find that freedoms that we had are somehow now enslaved or in bond in there. Um, the author stated, addiction breeds willfulness within us. Yet again, paradoxically, it erodes our free will and eats away our dignity. And we've seen that when it comes to drugs, especially something that really can, or even food. If we eat too much and we get overweight and we get to the point where we don't want to go outside, we don't want to uh, uh, put on clothing or because they won't fit right, or and so then our self-worth, our self-confidence is no longer there. So he's really right on there. So basically, when we begin to understand our addiction, we take a journey to reclaim or recover those desires that caused us, and they cause us to look to God. The author asked the question, could some mild addictions like nicotine, smoking, caffeine, or chocolate, can these be because they are physical addictions or psychological addictions or psychological dependency? My thoughts went to Romans 12:1 and 2. And again, by starting this journey over that recovery process, we're looking to God to transform our thoughts and to align those thoughts with God. And in that, we begin to be delivered from those things that would cause us to run away. So I see the essential ingredients of recovery and deliverance uh, are grace and hope, which are the same things that we will find in our spiritual formation. Therefore, I conclude my thoughts that recovery and deliverance is definitely a spiritual journey, and therefore, this is why programs like um, Overeaters Anonymous, AA, um, some of the narcotic programs, these are why some of these programs and groups are successful, because in some way their spiritual man is transformed because of the recovery process and the delivery process. Grace and hope. Thank you.